Hello Scrolls fans, Smokin here with another episode of Scrollscast celebrating the very recent release of Scrolls 1.0 version. We've got a matchup between Kowser and ChiefBromden here, spectating to see who's going to take this one down. Decay on the left versus Growth on the right. Kowser looks to have a pretty solid opening hand. He has a nice curve with a Tribesman into a Moodoo Fighter, but he does go ahead and get rid of the Fighter, choosing to keep his extra removal, poison-based removal, instead. Tribesmen will likely come down in the middle. You want to position your units in the middle initially, never up in these corners, never in the back. You want them to have the most mobility that they absolutely can, and you want to have the most board coverage that you can, and that's this middle spot right there. ChiefBromden looks to be playing a mid-game growth build with Quakes and Sisters of the Owl. Kowser finds a 3-drop, perfect timing on that. We'll have to decide what to sacrifice, gets rid of his Brain Lice, plays a Festering Freak behind his Tribesman, now moved into defensive position. The Festering Freak is a relatively new addition to Decay decks, recently buffed from a 1-2-2 to a 2-2-3, so finally starting to see some play after being around for a while. ChiefBromden finds a Terran Brute and plays that out as his 3-drop. Kowser now can Infectious Blight the Terran Brute if he chooses, and does decide to do so. So the poor Brute will tick down slowly, and then once it dies, the Blight will pass off to another unit. Unfortunately for the Chief, he doesn't have a strong 4-drop to play. He's got a Vader, which is a great 2-drop, but really kind of in an awkward position on that turn with not a lot of strong plays to make. He could Ragged Wolf now, setting up for a Kinfolk Veteran next turn to take out the Tribesman, but that's probably not worth the card investment just to take out the 2-drop. Kowser finds a Soul Steal, will probably sacrifice, actually he goes in and plays it right away, and then chooses to get rid of his Oblivion Seeker. That's a fine play too, there's no problem with that play. Finds Harvester and Infectious Blight, positions his units, splits a little bit, and gets some idle damage off. The Chief now finds a poison spell of his own, will potentially go up to 5 to play the Veteran, but instead poisons the Festering Freak. Ragged Wolf played down to take out the Mire Shambler, sacrifices the Sister of the Owl for Scrolls, and sets up for next turn. Nice sequence of events there for him. Kowser looking to respond now. The Festering Freak will still get 1 attack off before the poison finishes it off. Gets rid of a Harvester and plays a Rot Eater. Passes the turn. Now the Brute is ready to attack. So he will get some idle damage in. ChiefBromden sacrifices up to 5, plays an Earthborn Mystic, so that will actually buff the attack of the poisoned Brute by 1 because it's an enchantment on it. Festering Freak ready to go now. 2 more Infectious Blights in hand for Kowser. Probably go ahead and play 1 and chooses to put it on the Earthborn Mystic, so that's a few turns away from dying, and the Festering Freak takes the middle idle down to 6 with the explosion of poison there. ChiefBromden finds another Sister of the Owl just in time. Goes up to 6, pitches a Kinfolk Veteran to do so, plays the Sister of the Owl to the top, so he's splitting his units a little bit. The Owl spawns to the second row. It's a random spawn. He can still move it, but chooses not to, lets it sit there at risk from these units. Festering Freak pops to the Ranger's Bane Poison, pumps the Ilmire Rot Eater. A 3rd Infectious Blight is played. ChiefBromden is probably not happy to see that. But that was actually a little bit of a mistake. What ChiefBromden can do, actually, never mind, I did the math wrong because all 3 Infectious Blights jump to the same unit. So now those Blights are spreading around. Ragged Wolf has 1, Sister of the Owl has 2. Fertile Soil takes down that one, so that Blight is gone. Goes up to 7 resources now, shifts his units a little bit and lets the Owl get an attack in, so Sister of the Owl's attack goes up by 1 as well. Alright, Kowser finally has Witch Doctor resources. That's one of the more powerful scrolls in the game, especially against Growth. Growth has a hard time breaking through a Witch Doctor defensive formation. Of course, when the Tribesman dies, if it's in front of the Witch Doctor, it'll spawn a Husk in its place. ChiefBromden, on 7 resources, pitches for Scrolls, has a Birther of the Wolf and an Earthborn Mystic to play, and he does so. Still staying to the top, letting his units get in and deal quite a bit of damage to this second idol, so really wearing down those top idols. Kowser will probably look to move to the middle now, can afford to do so relatively easily, has a Mire Curse in hand, so lots of poison spells in Kowser's deck. Needs to sacrifice something though. Plays an Oblivion Seeker to the middle. Has a choice of what to sacrifice. Could pitch the Rot Eater and play a Mire Curse on the Earthborn Mystic to kill this Owl. but does go ahead and sacrifice, and luckily finds a 1-drop to fill out the rest of his resources. Plays that Ripper behind the Oblivion Seeker and content to take down the second idol and not move to the middle, ready to just contest it with these humans backed up by the Witch Doctor. ChiefBromden now. Quake available. Maybe not the time for it, though it would take out all those infectious blights, so that might be a tempting spell to cast. It wouldn't really affect Kaiser's board too much is the problem, really only taking out that Ripper. Rallying and Kinfolk Veteran, but there's that Quake, so that does take out, it weakens all of these units and takes out the infectious blights, so that's what his thought process was there. Sends the Ragged Wolf in, takes out the Oblivion Seeker, which spawns a Husk and draws 2 scrolls for Kaiser, who has another Witch Doctor in hand now. Wow. Okay, so he can now pretty effectively move to the middle, shifts a Husk up, both Husks up. Let's see. Tribesman to the middle, Witch Doctor actually behind. Looks like he's going to try to fit a Rot Eater in there, or maybe a second Witch Doctor. He chooses a second Witch Doctor. Still needs to sacrifice. Interestingly, the powerful Rot Eater, the 5/3, has been left vulnerable and undefended. And ChiefBromden, if he can just get a veteran, a Kinfolk Veteran, will be able to get in there and take that down. And I think he does indeed have that veteran, and he does. So he has the opportunity to get in and get that Rot Eater, which is something that a growth deck definitely wants to do, if at all possible. But what else can he do with his turn? He would only have 2 resources left, so that would be a Vengeful Vader. Looks like he's okay letting the Rot Eater live, and chooses to play out a Rat King to muck up the board a little bit, make it more difficult for Kaiser's units to get through. Not a lot of Relentless in Kaiser's deck, just the Harvesters, and those are a ways away from being drawn, played, and counted down. Draws an enchantment, finds a Ranger's Bane, summons a Wolf from the Brother, and moves that down to get 1 shot off on this Rot Eater, taking it to 2 health. Positioning his units now, trying to defend as much as possible with those rats. And 1 damage to the Rot Eater. Kaiser now has Brain Lice, Needle, Cursemonger, and Rot Eater in hand. 7 resources to play with. Could play the Needle to take out this top Earthborn Mystic, or could Brain Lice it. Could use the Needle to lock one of these units in place. Also needs to think about what to do with this Rot Eater. Could shift it down to just deal 5 damage to this idol. Ooh, finds a Harvester in hand. That's a good timing, because next turn lots of units are going to die to these attacking units. So having that Harvester down and ready seems to be the way to go. I was surprised that ChiefBromden didn't take the opportunity to kill off these 2 Husks while they were undefended with the attacking Earthborn Mystic and Brother the Wolf, but chose to use their respective abilities instead. And so those Husks are about to be ready to attack. Cursemonger played defensively. This Witch Doctor is defending everything and extremely well. Rot Eater shifts back. Harvester played up front. And 1 Wolf will perish, counting the Harvester down to 4. 4 attacking units next turn. ChiefBromden would like to find potentially a Rallying. Or if he had God Hand there, that would have been a really big play, but of course doesn't have it. Sacrifices for scrolls, finds more Rat Kings, Sisters of the Fox, Vengeful Vader, has a veteran still. Really can only take out 1 unit if he sends in the veteran. That's the best that he can do offensively this turn. So it looks like he's going to go with a defensive play, just play out another Rat King. And still has resources for maybe a Sister of the Fox. No rats wasted on the already destroyed idol row. Sister of the Fox does indeed come down. Will cantrip and draw a scroll. It's a striped Fang Bear, which will be nice to have actually. But ooh, only 1 unit defending that middle idol, so he's okay letting that idol die. Interesting. Because that would, once that idol falls, Kaiser can really just move down and focus on this bottom one with this Harvester, which would be really tough to defend. But it looks like Kaiser is shifting to try to kill as many units as possible. Currently slated to kill 3. Wants to kill at least 4 if he can for this Harvester trigger. Yep, now he shifts up, so 4 will die. Deciding how to position these bottom units as well. Looks like he's fully shifting up. He's ready to just take on ChiefBromden's entire army. ChiefBromden needs to find a way to kill this Harvester. That's going to be what's absolutely critical. Nur's Needle takes out a unit. Brain Lice will, unfortunately, kind of wasted, played on that Sister of the Fox because it was going to die anyway. but at least he draws a scroll off of it. And the attacking units come in, take out almost all of ChiefBromden's army. He needs now, finally finds that rallying, but it's too little too late, I think. No real way to get in and take it down. Oh, and there's the God Hand. Oh, man, if that would have come up where the rallying did, he could have gone up to... Well, these rats are too far away to even do anything with that. So what ChiefBromden needs to do now is A, survive the turn, which is going to be challenging enough, and B, survive the turn with enough units to God Hand next turn and take back control of the board. So he starts with a Kinfolk Veteran. That will take down this Cursemonger, so that's a nice play. Sister of the Fox played as well. Draws a scroll off that. It's a Quake, which would be nice. I would have shifted those rats up in anticipation of potentially God Handing next turn, but he chose to keep them down. ChiefBromden is in trouble. Kauser has this attacking Harvester. It can currently go through and take down this middle idol, or it could shift up and take out both of those units and deal some idol damage and back. Finds a Pest Assimilator and a Moodoo Fighter. Has a third Witch Doctor in hand as well. Just needs to get more humans out. Currently, the Witch Doctors are the only humans on the board, counting on these Husks to play defense for him. Damning Curse, Brain Lice are the removal spells in hand. I don't anticipate either being played. Harvester does shift up to the second row, so that will take down both of these units. Witch Doctor played in front as well. And crashing in, idle damage dealt, rats killed. These rats are too far away to be effective with any God Hand play, so unfortunately ChiefBromden still is not in a position to do any serious damage to Kauser's board position. He could Quake. That would kill all of the Husks and the Rot Eater, weaken all of the Witch Doctors and not spawn any humans, but the Harvester will be ready to attack. He Frost Gales first, 1 damage to everything. That seems to telegraph a Quake follow-up. It will kill all but these 3 units, but unfortunately they're going to be the strongest units, and the Harvester will be ready to attack. I don't think it's game over instantly, but it's going to deal a ton of idle damage. So ChiefBromden actually decides not to do that. Plays out a couple of units instead. Still want to see these rats move up. I'm not worried about defending this bottom idol. Decay doesn't have a lot of tricks that can deal 10 damage in one go. Kauser now finds another Harvester, 2 attacking Witch Doctors. ChiefBromden seems to be setting up now for either a God Hand or a Quake, though I'm certain this Witch Doctor is going to come in and kill this Veteran. Could, interestingly, Damning Curse on the Fang Bear. That would kill all of these units, which would be 4 deaths, plus the Fang Bear would be 5, which would count down the Harvester. With that attacking Harvester, he could come in and deal just enough damage to do... I don't think he could win the game. I think it would be... actually, he could play his other Harvester out first, then Damning Curse. That would trigger both Harvesters, and that would be the game right there. So there was a lethal on that turn, but didn't quite see it. It was a complex one because of that Frostgale, actually, is what made that possible. But here comes that Harvester now. He won't be attacking this turn, but the Witch Doctors will be. Ilmire Tribesman comes down as well. Just a totally full top of the board there. Units killed. Brain Lice on the Fang Bear. All right, ChiefBromden. Now might be the time for that Quake. It's actually, he loses the game if he Quakes here, unfortunately. Needed to find another Frostgale to go with it. He needed to Frostgale first and then Quake. But it's just not going to happen. He might Quake anyway just to deal as much damage as possible, but looks like he's drawing. Finds that Frostgale, so if he can survive this turn, then he can maybe Frostgale Quake next turn, but that's still going to leave this attacking Harvester. Rat King will help to stall a little bit, though. Needs to position them to defend these 2 key idols, and he does so. So it looks like he will survive the turn, and with that, with the Frostgale Quake, he can do some work. The Damning Curse, I think, would still be lethal with those 2 Harvesters. So that's an option for Kauser. I don't know if he sees that play, though. There is 10 damage on the top idol. just with the units that are currently in play. So he could take that down. I don't know if he has any Loyal Darklings in his deck. I haven't seen any, unless they're all 3 at the bottom to finish off the 2 health idol. So I'm not concerned about that for ChiefBromden. Looks like the units are moving down. They will clear out the middle, clear out all of these units. So those units did exactly what they needed to do for ChiefBromden by stalling the game for another turn. More units come out, though, with the Cursemonger and the Tribesman. And ChiefBromden now will be Quake or Die. And I think, unfortunately for him, it's going to be both Quake and Die. Because he can't defend this top idol from that Harvester. Unless he top-decked another Frostgale there, I think. So on 9 resources, here's the Frostgale, here's the Quake, and actually he can afford the Ranger's Bane after, so he will survive this turn with a Ranger's Bane on the Harvester. But no, he didn't. He didn't play. There was taxing on that Quake, which there's still a bug in the spectate mode that was incorrectly showing me the cost. That's why I did the math wrong. But ChiefBromden could see the correct cost. So that's why that was my error, forgetting about that bug. He of course played that Quake earlier, but he did Frostgale into Quake, killed a ton of units, did a ton of damage, but triggered the Harvester, and Kaiser was able to get in for the win. So Decay takes this one down. Thank you for listening. This has been Smogan with Scrollscast. Check out more on the Badger Guild YouTube channel. Thank you for watching.